going to call the Board of Selectmen's meeting for September 19th, 2022 to order. We're going to start tonight's meeting in executive session right after we conclude this and return to open session no later than 6:30 p.m. Can I get a motion to go into executive session?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we go to executive session for two purposes. First, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Paragraph 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirements, parentheses, Purpose 7, of the Open Meeting Law, General Law 30A, 22FG, to review, approve, and/or discuss the possible release of executive session minutes dated July 11th, 2022, and July 25th, 2022. Secondly, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, 21A6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the town.
Second.
No,
Moved and seconded to go into executive session as read. Roll call vote. Julie?
aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
And I'm an aye.
You don't want me to repeat it, right?
Evening. I'm going to call the Board of Selectmen's meeting for September 19th, 2022 back to order. We started tonight's meeting at 6 p.m. in executive session, where we discussed approving and releasing executive session minutes from July 11th, 2022 and July 25th, 2022. We did approve the minutes, but we did not approve releasing the minutes. Second, we discussed purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the chair declares an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the town. We did speak to council in that meeting, and we will be discussing that parcel under old business later on this evening. With that, would you join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Anyone for public comment and announcement? First tonight.
I know, I ran, sorry.
I just wanted to stand next to you. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, you go. Carolyn Carey, Community Center Director, and I promised to just take a moment, but I wanted to remind everyone that tomorrow night is our pizza and candy bar bingo, free, nice family event, come on over. I also wanted to remind everyone that on the 21st, which is the Wednesday, we're having a free Zumba class in the gym, 6 p.m. It's part of the Try It, You'll Like It series. This is the third in the series, and they've been so well attended. Wanted to make sure people knew that. And next month, we have a brand new technology, Try It, You'll Like It. And we do things, we're working with the library on what resources they have, what you can take out and glean from their collections. We're also doing a social media basics class. And we are happy to report we're partnering with Monomoy Regional School and an incredible group of young individuals who'll be interning over with us and helping to teach some of these courses, truly making it a multicultural building, a multi-generational building. And lastly, I'll just mention that the Touch a Truck is coming up quickly on October 8th. And on that day, we thought we'd make it a family event. So we're running another free Zumba class, which is on a Saturday, just trying to see what people are looking for. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment announcement? Mary?
We decided we needed to highlight the openings that we have on the committees. This town is run largely by committees, and we, at this point, have 30 openings. For a while, we had a backlog, and maybe things weren't as orderly in the office, but Ellen Powell has done an amazing job going through reams of records to get who wants to be on what committee sorted out. Don and Larry over the last year did a lot of interviewing, and now Julie and Larry are on that. So we have a pretty quick process at this point, but we need people. So I'm not gonna read the numbers, but just the committees that need help, and if something strikes your fancy, we would love to have you involved. Agricultural, bikeways, capital outlay, finance, forest, cultural, energy and climate action, housing, historic district, historical commission, planning board, treasure chest, voter information, youth services, and zoning board of appeals. We're going to have this in the packet every week, so you can look for it, and until somebody gives me the hook, I'll probably read it.
Thank you, Mary. Moving on to annual committee presentations, and we'll start with the Harwich Accessibility Rights Committee. Good evening.
My name is Marianne Campagna. I'm the chair of HARC, and I have with me tonight our co-chair, Eileen Garrity, who's been very helpful. We're very new. We started in April. I thank Larry Ballantyne a lot for moving us along. The first thing we tried to do is prioritize where we're going and what funding we have. And we just found out from a very nice man whom you all know by the name of Sean Libby, that we have $20,000. So that was great. And Eileen is working on a grant. And we really have our fingers crossed that that could come to fruition. She's trying to get hold of Megan. So the first thing we've really done is to have guest speakers come in. And we had Link Hooper, and that was enlightening. I never knew how much it cost to put a sidewalk in this town. Then we had Stephen Cooper, Tupper. I don't know if you're from. Wow. He's a wow. He almost was exhausting. He gave me so much information. He was fantastic. And then Virginia Hewitt came and spoke to us. And then Sean just came, and Matt Hart, who was the previous chair for, I believe, many, many years, and sounds like a wonderful guy who did an awful lot. So it's a good beginning, and if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much.
You're
Julie?
welcome.
I don't have any questions, but thank you for all your work. It's so important. I did see something come through our email today. I was thinking to mention that. It's about accessibility, et cetera, so I'll share that with you, Larry.
I just have to share why I became interested. 4 years ago, my nephew fell out of a tree at WPI his freshman year, last day. And he is paralyzed from here down. And he came to visit us in Harwich. And although some of the curb cuts were fine, but there were many places he couldn't enter. And if anything touches your heart and you want to see change, get active. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to touch on each board member. Mary?
I'd just like to thank you for your approach. You know, a lot of people get on a committee and they immediately want to start doing things. I like the fact that you're starting with listening and finding out resources and knowledge before you decide what to do. That's fabulous.
Thank you.
Larry?
Thank you, Eileen, or Mary Ann and Eileen. As Mary Ann inferred, it's a very passionate group. They're listening, but they also are bursting at the seams to get something done. And Eileen's done also written a lot of work already trying to get grant money. And I know she's after you making it help and after me to review it. Mary Ann, you did make a comment in your report that it'd be nice if we could add one or two more members, because as they approach this, there's a lot of hands-on work that could be happening. In my review, Megan, you can check me out. That's the Board of Selectmen committee. We're not tied into any state or federal regulations, so we can, in fact, increase that at our pleasure. I would ask that we put that on the agenda coming forward to discuss adding a couple more members to the committee.
Thank you, Larry.
We'd appreciate it if you could put it on the agenda, so thank you.
Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mary Ann and Eileen. I actually have a couple substantive questions. I know, I work with an organization that does work with sight loss, and so there's a lot of different possibilities for accessibility. It isn't just ambulatory, but I am concerned, and I'm not sure what you see your role in this is. people, obviously, when they build things, have to build them to a code for public places. But increasingly, without mentioning anybody's name, since we have two supermarkets, they're moving things around to the point where they're creating roadblocks. You're not getting 36 inches in aisles. And the bigger insult was when they started creating these grab-and-go parking spaces. They literally pushed the handicap spaces an aisle further away from their entrance. What kind of role do you see you playing in engaging, people that do that, especially the corporations who, I'm not talking about hammering some small operation here who's just trying to make a living. I mean, I'm talking about organizations that have some responsibilities.
Well, what the committee has certainly discussed are what we're calling site visits. And now that you've brought that up, that came up probably in our first meeting, but we got all bogged down with the beaches and rehashing what our speakers were telling us. So, but I will definitely put that under new business on our agenda for October. Thank you.
You could start with their parking lot.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I'm not sure that they ever asked the building commissioner or anybody. They just restriped everything and repositioned them. And I know there are laws relating to how close handicap spots have to be to
Absolutely.
buildings.
Thank you.
All set?
That's it. But thank you for all your work.
Great report, and thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I speak to that issue that you just?
Absolutely.
I'm writing the RFP.
Come right up to the mic.
Oh.
Sorry, we got to get you on TV for those that aren't here.
The RFP that I've written, and it does have, and my next step is I need to meet with some of the department heads to help me with pricing. I'm a nurse, I don't know how much a bag of cement is and that kind of thing, so I need to meet with those folks as well, and that would be helpful. I'm trying to reach them, but I'm not getting some callbacks on that. My aim is the one that I did find on the internet, mass.gov. There is a, that's the RFP that I'm writing to, and it is due by the end of this month. And so while I have a lot written, I need to get it to you to look at to make sure that that's consistent with what you would want to do, and tell me as much money as I can have to get these things done. And Megan, if I can have, 5 minutes with you afterwards, just to set up a time.
Sure.
Because you're the 504, and we have to go through that as
Okay.
well.
Sure.
And if you have any questions about you want to look at the text that I have going, you want to look at that ahead of time, that's okay.
Don?
Yeah, while you're there, if you're looking, I would suggest that you might want to start with the town clerk's office, which before the presidential election comes, so that you got plenty of ramp-up time. I know Site Law Services, we ditched anything that was more than 2 or 3 years old because the state of the art is radically changing right now. And
Sure.
the voting machine that they have that accommodates visually impaired is pretty old. As far as I can recall, it was the same one that I was doing election work for, 8-10 years ago. It's the same machine. So you may want to, because if you're going to start at home, the town government, that's
Sure.
a practical place to start.
And certainly if any of you know some things that you think is critically important, if you let me know, and I'll make sure that gets into the RFP, and we'll develop the pricing structure for that.
Ginny's vital expert is a person you definitely want to talk to.
I'm sorry, her name again?
Jenny Hewitt,
Jenny Hewitt?
Yeah,
Okay.
she has a vital representative in,
Carla Burke.
Carla Burke.
Oh, Carla.
And she's awesome. I mean, she knows, she's involved with Perkins and a bunch of other places where
Okay.
she is an immense resource. As I said, not everything is ambulatory.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Michael?
Larry?
That discussion brings up a point, Megan, that in our last town meeting, we didn't organize them soon enough to get the screen up, the visual screen for the sight impaired. Could you check that for this meeting coming up in October?
Sure.
All set?
That's it.
Great. Treasure Chest Committee.
Mind if I sit?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Okay, hi,
Good evening.
good evening. Glad to report that you approved our opening on February 28th.
Oh, just state your name for the
Oh,
record.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Ellie Gerson, Treasure Chest, acting chair. And the first good thing that happened to us was the kiosk that was built by the highway department for our gate entrance, for our volunteers that stand and wave people in or keep them out. March and April, we dedicated to cleaning up the facility and setting up as best we could with what we had left from the previous setup. But by April 30th, we were ready. It was a Saturday. We were ready for people to drop items off. And the following day, Sunday, May 1st, we were fully open for both drop-off and pickup. Stickers have been an issue ongoing through all the weeks we've been open because people aren't sure which sticker they need to get in. Everyone has an opinion of how the town should run it. And we, at the gate, have to say, no, you can come back when you have the $5 sticker. We have lots of volunteers, both old and new, and they're willing to look at the guidelines and comply with the changes that have been made. I just have experienced a lot of gratitude on the part of the public, that they're really glad we got this going. We also have some criticism, of course, but it really is gratifying to hear people glad for what we've gone ahead and done. One of the things we had to deal with was a very hot summer and how to staff in extreme heat. And Lynn Cooper was good in guiding me through that. And so we had a better idea, looking into the winter, of how to think about cold, cold days, and what we should do with that. And lastly, I don't think I put it on the report, that our old refrigerator in the facility died about 2 weeks ago. And I told Link, and he had it carted away, and he said, would you like a new one? And I said, yes, please. So he, just this past week, dropped off a mini fridge, because we just really need it for keeping water cold. We find that if it's too big, people leave food behind, and it gets to be another job. So thank you for your support. We plan to keep going forward with our good work.
Great, thank you. Larry?
Well, thank you, Eileen. It's a good report. And obviously, it's been I shouldn't say obviously, but it's been a very successful summer. I feel much better. I got rid of a lot of stuff. And my grandkids were there this weekend, and unfortunately they carried some back, but they took it elsewhere. I think, as you mentioned, we need a special thanks to Lincoln and the department, because they've really taken care of you with all it needs. I know one time the trash barrel filled up, and they were there within hours.
Yep.
I would suggest, because you have a very well-organized committee doing a great job, and volunteers, I would suggest that you put the sticker discussion on your next agenda item.
Okay.
Now you've had a year to look at it and see, and brainstorm on what we could do better on that.
Perfect.
Because it's not perfect, as you say. It's people get a little frustrated, but by and large, it's been a very happy and very well received function.
Thank you, Larry. Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have to say I agree with Larry. I don't go anywhere without people saying, wow, are we happy that the treasure chest is back open again. And I know the point was always made that, yeah, we could close it down, and it does have trash associated with it, but let's put it this way. If it doesn't go to you, it would go into the trash, and we don't do paper throw, so it's still going to wind up in the trash stream. So this is a commendable activity. And I want to take the opportunity, because Larry worked really hard at this, and he needs to get some personal thanks out of this. That committee was pretty much on its last legs. And, there was a real possibility that that would close down. And he worked really hard to get that committee back functioning, come up with a plan that made everybody happy about the operation. And like I said, he's thanked everybody but himself, so he deserves that.
Thank you, Don.
Absolutely. Mary?
I agree with you on that, Don, and same as Don spoke. I haven't heard anything but positives about people. So glad it's open, and they speak very highly of the people, the volunteers that are working there. So I think you've got a great thing going. Thank you.
Julie?
I completely agree with everything Mary's just said, and of course, Larry, you've worked so hard on it. And I think the sticker thing, we did the best we could at the
Right.
time, so you had good points then, so thank you for your hard work.
I think the stickers being available months before it actually opens again next year will probably be a big help too, instead of a week after it opens.
Yeah,
So, and that's on this board.
we were lenient with a lot of people,
Yeah.
and we had to
Uh,
crack down, but I just reached out to Larry today to figure out what to do with, now that the Chamber of Commerce isn't going to be selling them, and there are people still coming to the Cape and wanting to buy them, so
Right.
we'll
We'll bring it up, yeah.
we'll solve it.
We'll solve it.
Yeah.
I'm confident.
Larry's gonna give out his address, he'll do it. No problem.
Well, some people come and they want to give me the $5,
Yeah.
you know, they,
I would agree, there has not been the complaints that we were having before, and there's not been one line out the driveway and down Queen Anne Road, so
kept that moving, yeah.
everything seems to be operating very well. The only note I picked up based on your report is people being sworn in. It's kind of a, I'm not sure.
Okay,
We need to be sure. It's very important that committee members get sworn in and take the ethics test.
right.
So we want to make sure that everybody on here, it says,
Wasn't that they weren't sworn in, it was,
They can go, they need to go to the town clerk. It's very simple, just call the town clerk
For
and
the-
ask for an appointment.
conflict of interest.
No,
Oh.
you first have to be sworn in. As a committee, you're officially a town employee.
and it does say members
get-
sworn in, period, and then it says, we'll ask for state ethics. Both are equally as important.
Okay, but isn't everyone already sworn in?
Well, we're listening to your report. You need to check with everyone and see if they're sworn in, if that's the
Okay.
question.
All right,
And you can actually check with the clerk or Ellen in our front office. I'm sure that they would
she has
they would
it,
have a full list as well.
Yeah.
that'd be great.
But great job.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Brooks Academy Museum Commission.
Hello
Good evening.
again. David Spitz, Chair of the Brooks Academy Museum Commission. And it looks like we have a project this winter. So I've given you the report. Campbell Construction is known to the town. They did work on the library. And I know Sean Libby is familiar with them. I have not worked with them personally. But our architect likes working with them. Our building facilities manager is familiar with them, so we're optimistic. We had 4 bids ranging from 1.2, which we're going to accept, and that should be before you next meeting, to 2.4 million. The 2.4 million was someone that our architect begged to submit a bid because they had been low bidder on another one of the projects that they were involved in. Well, I guess they didn't want this one that much. So anyway, 3 of the 4 bids we would not have been able to accept because they would have been well beyond our budget. We are barely within budget, and we propose to go ahead. And the article that's at special town meeting, if anybody out there is listening, is very important to pass to give us the administration funds necessary to pay, to get the construction work done. So that's the big item I have to report on. Other than that, we plan to continue in the approved capital plan at last town meeting. There's about $2.5 million for this building. This project that we're just doing this winter is the biggest piece. The next piece that we're seeking CPC funding are the windows, 52 windows. They need removal of the glass, the windows, sash restoration, reuse the historic glass, reinstallation, frame and jamb restoration. We are proposing a historically accurate complete job on those windows. It's going to cost some money, but we are seeking CPC funding on that. There are other items in the capital plan, but we're trying to knock these off one at a time. And on a smaller scale, the site of the Kroll Barn looks a lot better now with some new trees and a nice lawn and an irrigation system, which of course cannot be used at the moment. But we will publicly give thanks to Paul Doan for funding this work. So folks, that's my report.
Thank you, David. Julie?
I was by the barn the other day when I was over at the farmer's market, and it's just so beautiful, so it's great to see this work moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you for your report.
Mary?
All set. It's a great report, and I'm glad you got a bid that was very close. And a known entity that people that are gonna have to work with them know them and have worked with them.
Yeah.
That's worth an extra $1 million right there.
Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know I'm speaking to the choir, David, but there's always been rumblings about why you're spending so much money on Brooks Academy when we need this or we need that. The whole point of the Community Preservation Act was to fund things for municipalities where they couldn't fund them beyond their teachers, their public safety officials, their roadways, and they're not supposed to pit each other against each other. The whole point was that there needed to be a place for history, there needed to be a place for recreation, there needed to be a place for housing. And as we've seen with other buildings, when we don't take care of them, it's catastrophic. We get to the point where we have to let them loose or they just fall down. That's a gem. Mr. Brooks goes way back in our history, so you're actually celebrating. There were different Brookses for those people who don't understand the history about the library and the park and the academy, but it's inextricably part of our past. To let that go in any way would be a real shame, and you guys have been taking extra good care of it, and I thank you for that.
Okay, thank you.
Larry?
No, nice job. I think, I agree. We're happy it's moving forward. I do want to second remarks on the town warrant article, because the OPM is critical. Not only
Yeah.
to do the job correctly, but to continue to get the, to run the regulatory hurdles to get the job done. I know you've, I'm sure you've been looking at this, but and I'm sure you continue to look at potential grant funding. Is there anything out there that is coming to mind, or you're hopeful?
We haven't come close yet, but we're going to keep trying.
Okay. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much. Great report.
Thank you.
Planning Board?
Good evening, Duncan Berry, Chairman of the Planning Board, and you all have my written report. The only things I would add to that are that, we have finally replaced Joe McParland, the late Joe McParland, whose passing we mourned this last year, with a new member who will be on the Capital Outlay Committee. We also have 2 new members who are functioning seamlessly so far, knock wood. And there was one other item that I wanted to, we're back, obviously, in a post-Zoom world, so it seems to be going along well. I would only encourage you to help us find a planner and maybe consider some way that we could interface with the long-term or the long-range planning exercise that just got underway last week. I think it's only natural that we have some sort of feedback loop with the board. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Absolutely. Thank you. Mary?
I have a question. What's the Mullen Rule?
Mullen Rule is your ability to render a vote on a matter that you have not attended the first meeting for. So, in other words, you promise to go do your homework, and then, because if we can't get a quorum, for some votes we need 5 votes. So in the last meeting, for instance, the one before last, we had Mary Maslowski was unable to attend, so she was able to watch the recording of the meeting and then vote accordingly.
Vote remotely or vote
In
at the
person,
next
she came
meeting?
to the so it was a matter that was continued,
Okay,
and she was able to come up to speed. So we have had 2 of those in this last year.
thank you.
Julie?
Thank you, Duncan, for your report. And I did have a couple questions. I couldn't agree with you more. Obviously, we need a planner very badly. The bylaw charter review portion that we're all going to be talking about going forward this year, I think it's important that we, segregate the zoning as we talked about. And of course, that will affect you and your board as well. I guess right now, one thing that just happened to pop into my head today, I was just talking to Megan about it, was with your different hearings, we just happened to get an abutters notice on a project, and it just made me think. So you're using VHB to look at your subdivisions in terms of engineering,
Yeah.
et cetera, right?
Yep.
And when you find a need, or have you found any need to, look at other pieces and get either legal to weigh in or VHB? Just wondering how you're handling all
Well,
that.
we rely on legal as we need, it's kind of and one of the benefits of when John was our planner was he had a peerless legal knowledge and insight into the zoning. And he also, that's something I should mention. So we have relied on legal, town council. One thing that John did leave behind was an annotated index of the zoning laws of the town. And he saw that it was important he thought it was important to consider streamlining and kind of making a concordance of all the language that's used throughout, so it doesn't read like kind of a crazy quilt, that this was added here and this was stricken out here. And so it might be worth our while to consider this as part of the either long-range planning exercise or kind of maybe a subcommittee where planning and selectmen kind of get together and see if there's something that could be done with this with council. I don't know. It's just, but it might be a nice way to tidy up exactly the kinds of ambiguities that you're talking about.
Okay, no, that sounds great. Thank you.
Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually mentioned that when we were talking at our last meeting with the Charter Review Committee, that's a daunting task because the zoning portion of our bylaws is kind of a dense place to dive into. And it's been added to and modified throughout the last, 30 years, basically. So, but on the positive side, I'd like to give you some kudos because it wasn't that long ago where you couldn't make the comment about your minutes being, the last ones being August 23rd, 2022. I mean, you're functioning well.
Right.
You have a divergence of opinion. You're respectful, in my experience, to all the people who come in, whether or not you're going to approve. The operation itself is significantly better than I've seen in years, and it's a credit to all your members that it operates that way.
Well, we want to make sure that everybody gets to be heard.
For that, I thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Larry?
I have nothing to add to that. Nice job, keeps the committee going.
Thanks, Larry.
Great job, Don.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Historic District, Historic Commission.
They did not submit a report. We weren't sure if they were going to show up or not, so
They're not here.
they're not here. And same with Housing Authority. You were here.
All right, we're going to jump right into Harwich Housing Authority because they're here.
Housing Authority is online, if you can hear me.
She's sick.
Okay.
You behave yourself.
Thank you for
She's,
staying home.
Yeah, she called me. I'm Tracy Cannon. I'm the executive director of the Harwich Housing Authority.
Thought you'd appreciate it.
Standing in for Elizabeth. You guys, I think, got my report. Did everybody get it? I don't know if anybody had any questions. We can just kind of, if you wanted me to scan kind of through it quickly, there's not a lot has changed from this year, from last year to this year. We're a tiny housing authority, one of the smallest in the states, which makes it hard to get board members. Obviously, that's been a big issue, and that was something that I was going to ask you guys. We're actually up to 4 right now, which is like amazing, but we went 6 months without having a quorum. I mean, I only had 2 people, so we couldn't vote on anything. It was very hard, and then Elizabeth and Kim and everybody kind of got together and tried to. It's not a very glamorous board. I mean, it's a tiny little housing authority. It doesn't, we basically, the board just manages me. I mean, they're my boss and they oversee what I do. But we've just got the 12 family units and then the group home, and then our MRVPs. So it's kind of hard to get people, you know, we have a new member, and I feel badly because he came out kind of hoping that he was going to like make a difference for housing in Harwich, which I wish, you know, I could do, but I'm not a Harwich resident, so I can't. But it's hard because it doesn't really function like that. It's just more overseeing what we do, you know, what our little housing authority does. So anyway, what our little housing authority does is we have 12 family units split between Headwaters and Long Pond. And then we have, I did want to make a change. We have, one of the big things we have is the MRVP, which is a housing voucher. It's sort of like Section 8, but it's state. And on my report, I actually noticed that it says family and elderly vouchers, but it's not. It's anybody. Anybody can get a voucher. You get a preference for being local, and with the MRVP program, that means not just a Harwich resident, but also any people whose children go to the Monomoy school system. So what happens with those, and this is another thing I just wanted to kind of put out there, is we have 21 of them. We've got 18 leased currently, so people are out in market value, you know, market rentals, and we make their rent affordable. So they come to us and we do a calculation and we say, okay, with your income, 30% of that would be affordable, and then we pay the rest. It's a fantastic program. It's an amazing program. We have 21 altogether, so we have 3 that we've offered to people, but the problem that we keep running into is there's nothing to rent. And so that's the stumbling block. Likewise, with the rental assistance program, that's a town program that you guys, you know, that we've gotten from CPC. The families are crawling up on that one. During COVID, when everybody was getting a lot of extra money, there wasn't much need. There wasn't as much need. And so we're finding lately more applications. But even still, we've still got money to give for that. And that's a little different. That's a $350 a month for a maximum of 3 years. But again, people, they need the place to live where we can help them with their rent. And that's really the struggle that we, you know, and that, I just mentioned that to you guys because in general, we all know, obviously, that housing is so difficult, and I know you guys are doing everything you can to get more housing, you know, and, but the more housing we have, the more, I can get more vouchers. You know, if we could get like some affordable housing, I can get money to help people move into that housing. And so, you know, we're there, and I'm so happy to go to the state and ask for more. You know, we're so happy to do that, so. But that's the only thing that was in here that wasn't exactly right, is that it's for everybody. The rental assistance is for everybody, not just elderly and family. And other than that, everything else is just as it's been, as it continues to be. We just plug along, and we have a group home that's rented by VinFen for mostly behavioral health adults, you know, with behavioral health issues, and they do a stunning job, and they just put in a brand new air conditioning system, and that's going along great. So I don't know if anybody had any questions, or if I can
Excellent.
give
Thank
any
you.
more clarity.
Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to clarify for those people who are looking, because everybody else who's been talking to us, we appoint. You're a state agency.
Correct.
You're elected.
Correct. Yep, I am. We are a state, yep, we are a town. Our board is a town board, but we are governed by the state of Massachusetts.
And you're elected by the ballot box, except
elected by-
for the one person who the governor appoints.
So the board is elected by the town. Yeah, I mean, the board gets elected
By the townspeople.
by the townspeople, correct? Yep. And then we have one governor appointee, yes.
You mentioned that you were one member light.
Yes.
Do you know which one that is? Not the person. I mean, which opening is it?
It's just it's just a board member. We've got a chair, a vice chair, a governor appointee, and a treasurer.
So this is directed to Elizabeth. We do have a role in this, but in order to fill that opening, we'd have to have a joint meeting of the Board of Selectmen and the Housing Authority, and then interview candidates and as a combined entity vote on who would fill that. Because you don't have to go with that vacant.
Right.
Well, it's more to Elizabeth to tell
Oh, I'm
her
sorry.
that.
Is she there? She may have gone to
That's
bed.
fine with me at your availability.
Okay, well, the chair is taking note of that.
Excellent. Larry?
No, nothing to add. Thank you very much for the report, and I just hope you feel better.
Mary?
Thank you.
It's disappointing, you know, so often money's the problem.
I know.
You've got money, and
You have no idea. Yeah.
that's just
I
hard.
see it all day long, just all day long, yeah. It's really, really hard to watch.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Julie?
I agree so wholeheartedly. You point out, I did a lot of residential leasing 16 years ago.
Yeah.
And back then, we were looking for money to help people, and there wasn't enough of it.
Right.
And
right.
now we've got the stark reality that it's the opposite, which is.
Exactly. Yeah, tables have definitely turned, yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
I thank you for your work, and
Oh,
of course, we understand the immediate need for housing, and hopefully we can really start to make some progress on
And
it.
I'd just like to say too, in closing, that we are a state, we're a state. But I've talked to my board members in Harwich, and I'm so happy to, like, if anybody wants to, in the town, I'm the only person in my family that doesn't live in Harwich. Everybody, I have sisters and kids, and everybody lives in Harwich. So I'm so happy to just sort of like give anything I can in the way of help or advice. I mean, I can do just so much, but I don't, I'd like to believe that even though we're only a little housing authority, and do a small group, that we're part of the town, and we want, I want to help in any way I can. So just, that's out
You
there.
just reminded me of something, too. You
Sure.
mentioned the MRVPs and that you had 3 remaining.
I have 3 that they're already offered. So what we do is we offer them, and then they're supposed to have 90 days, but I've talked to my guys up in Boston, and I just said that's ridiculous. And they know the Cape well enough that they're like, you're right. So they've left it up to me. And so I've given everybody at least a year to find a place. And they do. I mean, they and I look.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that, but I look for them. If I see anything out there that that could be a lead, I call right away. But they're so few and far between. And they use the MRVPs at the affordable. At the I've got a couple over at Lake Street. I've got a couple over at Hatch. I've got a couple. And so it isn't just for an open market rental. It's also for an affordable rental. The only place you really can't use them is at the housing authority, because our rents are determined by income. So.
Maybe, what about vets? Do they have any
They
priority?
have
in
so that's the funny thing about MRVPs.
They do on the Section 8, but
In
not
my
on
house,
the-
exactly, and in the housing, they have the priority. And in the MRVP program, they don't.
They don't, okay.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about that with the people up at the state, where it's like, I don't know what
yeah.
that's all about.
Kind
But
of a miss.
I wonder if it might have just slipped through the cracks, but there's a local preference. So everything goes first to people who are homeless or at risk of being homeless, that have gotten an eviction notice or that can't pay their rent. And we go to that list first, and then from that list, we take the local residents first. And so we never need to go beyond that local ever.
Yeah.
There's always plenty of people on that list, yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, thank you.
Thank you. Can I get a motion on the consent agenda?
I'd like to split these out at the indulgence of the chair here.
Absolutely.
Okay, the first one, I'd like to move an amended version of the meeting minutes of August 22nd, 2022. On page 8, if you've got it up on your screens, 6 lines down, it's very cryptic. It has to do with, Mr. Howell stated that when you're looking at state procurement laws, don't look at the total value, look at the percentage. What that was alluding to is the threshold for which 30B and some other things happen in the state. What I meant, and I know it was stated then, it was that you have to look at the percentage that the auctioneer is charging on the project, that's the total value that you're looking for in the procurement, not the total value of what they're representing to sell, if that makes sense to you. So, I mean, as long as it says you have to look at the percentage charged by the auctioneer, it would be clearer.
So you're making a motion to
With that
approve
change.
with that amendment?
Yes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Don, you'll work with Ellen to get that changed done?
Yes, I will.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Mr. Chair, I
Zero,
move,
Megan?
Mr. Chair, I move that we vote with gratitude to accept the gift from Paul Doan for improvements to the Kroll Barn Museum in Harwich Center.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Why don't we start with you, Don?
Yeah, can we send a letter of
think it's very
gratitude for that?
appropriate. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Megan, you made a note to
I did.
get a letter out. Thank you. All right, discussion of the town administrator's current financial assessment per Harwich Charter, Chapter 9-2-1. Megan, do you want to open this?
Sure.
Thank you.
As you know, Joe is at a conference out of state for the evening, so he has provided you with a current financial assessment as part of our charter, Chapter 9, Section 2, Clause 1. What he's given you is estimated revenues, which show that we are on track for our estimated revenues, seeing that we are still in the first quarter, and it's showing that we are tracking at about 19% of our estimated receipts. He then talks about personnel-related costs, and we are 4 out of the 8 collective bargaining units down for contracts, and we are very close with several others, and we do anticipate being completely finished with those negotiations before the end of this calendar year. And that provides a lot of stability in our financial outlook for not only this year, but FY '24, '20, and '25. And then lastly, he gives a capital outlay outlook, and in your packets, there's a chart of where most of our spending is happening for our capital. And as you can see, 93% of our capital is being spent on wastewater. That's a significant amount. And then in your packets is more charts that you're probably familiar with, graphs of spending and local receipts for your review.
Thank you, Megan. We have our finance director here tonight. We are also going to have a conversation on this at our October 3rd meeting with more information from the town administrator. Larry, any questions tonight?
No, I think this is a good brief summary of where we stand, and it's comforting to note that we, as a whole, we're in good shape. You know, you read the papers, you get depressed fairly quickly. I'm glad we're outside of that stream of consciousness.
Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to riff on what Larry said. Actually, just so everybody knows, we're in good shape only because we've spent the last several years being duly diligent and not trying to spend our way out of perceived problems. We've been prudent about what we're doing. I expect with this board we're going to be prudent in the future, and that's the only real way that we're in the position we're in right now, and we will be in a few years. Yeah, I know the chair himself had expressed 4 or 5 years ago some consternation about what the trajectory looked like based on what we were doing, and we're in a much more solid place now.
Thank you, Don. Mary?
No, I don't have anything to add. I think we're in a good spot, and it was a good first look at some numbers.
Julie?
Agreed. I think, we'll know more when we look at them further in October. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you. I guess my only question really is on local receipts. And I know at one meeting, a resident questioned our free cash policy and how we were coming up with free cash and really wanted us to take a look at that. If you look at the estimated receipts, and I think, Amory, I'll probably call on you, like where the harbor one is, how are we coming up with the thought that we could be that far down on local receipts? And not across the board, but several line items here. I'm trying to find harbor because that's the one that really jumped out at me. Page 4, thank you.
The seasonal dockage?
Page 4. So, Amory, if I could just have you come up, that way you're on, and you can sit here if you prefer to sit. So we're going from actual FY 2022 with a great report from the harbor master based on our current receipts and the rate changes. So we're gonna go from 1.4 million, and budget down to 1.177. How do we come up with that number and that much of a drop?
I wasn't here when you built your FY '23 budget, but I would venture a guess that there are different fees that are not receipted as of yet.
Okay,
Additionally, I'd point out too that, like the sale of the sand, that happens when there's dredging.
Yeah.
And sometimes they can sell it and sometimes they don't, so that
Okay.
was part that just added to the pie.
okay. I did put that down for a question to the town administrator along with some other ones, which I'm sure you'll get a copy of, but thank you. Anything else from the board? All set?
Yep.
And if it's okay with the board, I'd like to take old business now. I'd like to skip over B, C, and D while we have Anne Marie here and talk about the warrant. And, because I know some things have changed, that way we can get her home and she doesn't have to stay through the rest of the meeting. Is that okay with the board?
It is.
Only if we get to go with.
Well, the next should be just motions, so, but if we could go to warrant discussion, and it's, I guess this would fall under B, vote to close and sign October. Last time we were here, we talked about funding 2 articles on free cash, and we've now found that we cannot fund them on free cash, correct? Two of the articles we talked about funding by way of free cash, we've now learned that we can't use free cash for those, and we have to do raise and appropriate. Does anyone have questions for the finance director on that? Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure what the sequencing is off the top of my head, but isn't the money from the school agreement available in this fiscal year?
Yeah, it's already appropriated, and that would be,
Fully appropriated out?
it's appropriated to your budget, so
That's what I'm
that would
saying.
be
So
part of your raise, and
whether we call it free cash or not, it's available to plug in.
you can reappropriate it somewhere else, and then we're still use that for raising taxes.
Well, that's where I was headed.
Okay. I mean, are you comfortable with Joe's memo and how he's, I guess that's the decision we have to make, is how he's saying that we should come up with this money on this warrant? Larry?
I'm not entirely, actually, because I'd like to understand better this raise and appropriate, because there's not much of an explanation for that. If we're not using free cash to get to Don's point. And then we had the, may confuse me a bit on some of the money coming back from the schools. We can't use that to offset taxes until fiscal year '24, I understand. So that money's not available for this spending either, correct? If I read that correctly?
Yep.
So maybe you can walk me through what raise and appropriate actually means then in terms of how we're funding these.
When we,
Because I got a little confused on the memo when you.
yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have that memo, so,
It's okay, I don't have it in front of me
I've
either.
been-
I read it earlier.
trying to do our free cash?
Bottom part of Joe's letter.
Well, maybe you can simplify it. To Don's point, we can treat the funds we have available as if they're free cash. We can use those,
The free cash will come from
But those-
funds from last year.
right.
In the
But those
vernacular.
have been approved already, right?
No,
And that's what we're waiting on.
yes.
And that's not gonna happen until next spring
But the
meeting.
school can function as if it were free cash. It isn't free cash. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah,
It's
it's not-
available, but it's not free cash.
Yeah, it's available if you want to reappropriate it to another department, project, or whatever you'd like to do.
And we can do that at town meeting then as part of this motion.
Yeah.
Only after we,
But we have to restate the
only after we
motion,
approve
right?
the agreement.
So, Megan, anything to add? I didn't know if you were chomping to speak over there.
I was, but I think his memo talks about the can't using not being able to use free cash because we haven't certified this year's free cash.
Right.
We do know we will have free cash, and we do know it will cover the articles that we're requesting money for. But we can't say we're using certified free cash because we don't know that number
That part I
yet.
got. What lost me was the timing of it. How do we pay for things that we can't? Do we hold it until we until it's certified? I guess that's what my question is.
So the proposal from Joe is to raise and appropriate and borrow the money.
And then pay back the
And then
borrow.
in May town meeting, we would have an article for that amount of money that we would then use free cash to offset the taxes for that amount.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and that was my point. This is real money. This is an underbilling for what we actually raised and appropriated prior. I mean, both the tech school and Monomoy. We are being billed at a lower amount than we actually set aside. So it's not a gamble. I mean, it's just, we get to town meeting and they shift it from here to here. I'm not guessing that it's going to be a certain amount. We received a bill that was under what we had anticipated and had budgeted for and appropriated.
Yeah. No, I got that. I just wanted to clarify the timing.
And now looks like we have a reduced Brooks Academy from 250 to 150.
Which helps,
And then
yeah.
we're still looking at the 75,000 for the charter consultant. So those are the two. The board's okay with going to raise and appropriate rather than
I am.
free cash?
They're still way under the amounts that we're going
Right.
to wind up getting back.
Yes. Yeah.
I'd just be prepared to
700,000
answer those
plus.
questions.
It's just really mechanics, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's all we're
Yeah.
talking about.
That's all
So
we're talking about. It's just,
I think, I
Timing.
don't have an issue with it.
Megan, anything?
No, you're exactly right. There's money available. It's just putting it aside once free cash gets certified in the fall, probably after a special town meeting, to earmark that
For the May town
for the May
meeting.
town meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Anne Marie while she's here? Those are the only two things that had changed. All set? Thank you.
All right.
So I'd need a motion on A, if someone wants to make it.
I don't know how to word that. Oh, A.
Yeah, old business A.
I move that we take action to accept and adopt Article 2 for the special town meeting to be held on October 18th, 2022, entitled Acquire Parcel of Land Located at 62 Route 28.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
aye.
Aye. That was the item that we discussed in executive session. Just so everyone knows, we didn't take any votes in executive session. We just had a discussion with council on it.
B.
B.
And with that, I move that we vote to close and sign the October 18th, 2022 special town meeting warrant.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Julie?
Should we actually close it tonight if we, yeah?
We have to.
Okay,
Oh.
all right,
Yeah.
okay.
Mary?
Never mind my question.
Good
Motions,
question though, Julie.
I know what you're concerned about, but
Yeah.
motions can modify the source of funding and stuff.
Yeah,
This is the article itself.
yeah, it's the article, I guess
Okay.
it's fine, yeah.
All right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Back to new business B. Take a motion. Oh, no, that's conversation. Board of Selectmen rules of operation and Board of Selectmen meeting schedule. We'll take it as one. And in your packet, there's a memo from Danielle. And it's related to how often the board meets. Don and I know have had several conversations over the past 7 years on whether or not we should or should not.
Feels like 7, it's only 6.
But if you look at the memo provided by Danielle, we are one of 2 towns on Cape Cod that meet weekly. I'm not saying that that's bad or good, but in talking to the staff, other than budget season, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't be meeting every 2 weeks and not every week. And it gives everybody time to actually do the work that we formed the week before, and to do research and to have complete packets. As it is now, we meet on Monday nights. We have our agenda prep Tuesday, Tuesday morning. They gather everything and post the agenda on Thursday. So I am 100% behind meeting every week once the budget process starts, and I think we need to. I think by going every 2 weeks, we also have the opportunity to have special meetings or workshops like other towns do with the town administrator. And we can post a meeting anytime a board member wants. Don?
I think we're going to shock you, but I agree. But I will say that as much as I appreciate what Danielle said, I've been bringing this up over the course of the last couple of years. The towns don't mean as much to me as what form of government they have, because the town manager, there's different responsibilities on the Board of Selectmen than there are here. And certainly neither the chair nor I want to bring a mattress so that we sleep over it during the meeting. So if we went to a 2-week schedule, we could always fill in with another meeting if we, even after out of the budget season. I might point out, I looked at the charter again. The charter does not say that we meet weekly on any given day. The rules of operation, we adopt. So if we don't want to adopt, we have meetings every week, we could adopt that we have meetings every other week, except in budget season or upon the request of members or the chair. I don't see anything wrong with that, because as the chair pointed out, we actually weren't in conformance of our own rules of operation last week, but there was no reason to meet, really. So I totally agree.
Well, and kind of looking at before I get to Mary, looking at what we're doing, if you've noticed, we've streamlined quite a bit of the agenda, because there was a lot of stuff that we were doing that we're not even supposed to be doing or don't have to do. So as we kind of look at the processes and the way that we have been doing things and eliminate things that we're really not supposed to be doing or don't have to do, the agendas have been manageable, and we're not here until 10 o'clock Monday nights. If it got to that point, I would be the first to recommend weekly meetings, because I don't like to be here at 10 o'clock. Mary, go ahead.
The only other thing I would add, because when I looked at this, I thought, and again, because of what Michael just explained, having shrunk down our agenda, I think every other week or twice a month, and I'm okay with either, would be fine. The only other thing I thought, in thinking about the meetings that got really long, they were usually hearing related. So maybe we make the hearings on their own day, when we have them.
Or special purpose meetings,
Yeah,
if we want to talk wastewater or talk something.
right.
We are in the process of planning a comprehensive wastewater discussion, and then on the 11th of October, we have 3 hearings that night, so.
Yeah.
So
Larry?
bring your sleeping bag for that night.
I'm taking a bunch of other things off the agenda for that. Larry?
Okay.
Yeah, good discussion. I agree. Give us more time to do our homework. As you know, for some years, I've argued that, let me say it differently. More meetings, it increases our temptation to micromanage. And the more we can move away from that and fulfill our charter role of policy deciders and not trying to manage, the stronger we'll be, quite frankly. And the stronger the town will be, because we'll rely on them more. So I'm for this different vision, if you will.
If it doesn't switch, we switch back. If it doesn't work, we switch
Yeah.
back. Julie?
After far too many meetings, my first 3 years, I was a strong proponent of every other week, and I see no harm in it. I think there's value in it, so if I had a hallelujah button, I would hit.
Trumpets.
And as you say, we're always free to have additional meetings if it's needed.
Right.
Yeah, we are in charge, by the way.
Okay, so the only thing go ahead, Mary?
And I think that would help the administration office, would I say, Megan? Give them time to do more, rather than a lot
You
of
could do more, Megan.
meetings.
Do more?
Wait a minute.
I'm sure you got that
That's
point.
on your desk.
Maybe you should meet bi-weekly.
Yes, agendas and prepping for meetings is a lot of work for mostly the admin staff to get everything together. But Joe and I spend quite a bit of time on topics as well. So every other week would be a very big help.
As chairman, I did agree to meet with Joe every Tuesday, continue, and that way I can get important information to the board
And
timely without you having to wait 2 weeks.
and Joe can send us an email on the number of days left to the next town meeting.
Yes, he's got the countdown. He'll have to update it when he gets back.
All right, right, so I would take a motion if I could get a motion on that.
I'm a little, the only thing I am uncomfortable about is it's a rule of operation, and we probably need to put people on notice that we're gonna change our rules, because I'm perfectly content with that. I think that there's a couple other things in here we might wanna take a run at, too.
I was gonna do it more broadly, but I decided to keep it just to section 4, which was meetings.
Yeah,
But-
I would hope we just do this right now, because it'll get bogged down if we don't. do
It says normally, right now. You have the ability to do that with our consent.
Okay, and I have your
Right
consent.
now, already.
Yeah, we're,
All right, so our next meeting will be October 3rd.
okay.
We are then going to meet October 11th because we have 2 joint meetings and a hearing.
Yeah.
In the meantime, if you don't mind, I could take a run at a couple of these things and see if we can
Please.
tighten them up a little bit and then change that language to every other week.
Megan, you're good with that? So it's October 3rd, October 11th, but we will be doing a 2-week
Sounds
meeting
good.
schedule. And Dawn's gonna take a stab at some of our
If
rules
that's
of
okay with
operation.
everybody.
Yeah.
Okay? Can I
So
get
after the 11th, we'd go to
2
every
weeks?
other week.
He already has the authority to do that with our consent, and we're consenting.
Yep, okay,
So
great.
there will be no meeting next week.
And is the 11th a special topic?
11th is a meeting with the Board of Health related to opiate funds.
Oh, yeah.
Joint meeting, it's a joint meeting with the trust and the housing
Okay.
committee, and it's the hearing on Summer House.
And that is on a Tuesday, just,
Tuesday, right,
reminding
starting
you.
at
And
6:30.
of course, October 18th is our special meeting, so you have
yes.
3 weeks in a row
Yes.
at
I
that
guess,
point.
I guess because it's listed in the rules of operation, is 6:30 a time that we want to stay with, or is 6 o'clock acceptable to the board?
That was one of those where I
I
would
like
question, you start getting to a point where it's so specific about things that you trip yourself up. I don't know why it's in our rules of operation. It should be when you reorganize, whatever it is the majority of the board wants to do, as long as it's every couple of weeks at a minimum. Why would we want to specify that any more than the color ink we're going to use when we sign things or trivial stuff?
I'm good with 6, I'll throw it right out there.
Yeah.
I think the earlier we get
Yeah.
in and the earlier we get out, the earlier we all eat.
That would be the earliest I'd be comfortable with, because I've seen other towns that hold them 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It almost becomes like a secret compact where everybody's at work and we'll just meet and nobody will be able to come.
I'm good with 6 if the board's okay with 6.
Okay.
I am as well. I found the summer doing that at 6, it was nice, and I don't think it matters what time of year it is.
Still
It's
have light
just
to
nice
drive
to
home
get
with.
it earlier.
Don, 6 good?
Yeah.
Larry?
I can live with that.
Okay. So
Starting
6
on the 3rd?
6 it is, starting
I
on the
just eat my peanut butter and jelly earlier.
Did
We'll
you
bring
ever
you
eat
a
fluff?
fluffernutter.
What about the fluff? I
Meg-
got
Yeah,
you.
we eat that.
Megan, the only thing we
Gotta
gotta
have
be
pizza or
conscious
something.
about is the hearing. We said no earlier than 6:30, but we can do something else first. Okay, back up, new business, we're gonna go to B, C, can I get a motion?
New business. Yeah, I move that we vote to approve the recommendation of the interview committee to appoint J. Allen Ferry to the Bikeways Committee as a full member with a term to expire June 30th, 2023.
Second.
Moved and second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Motion on D?
I move that we vote upon the recommendation of their respective committees to reappoint the following designees to the Community Preservation Committee. First, Elizabeth Harder from the Harwich Housing Authority with a term to expire June 30th, 2023. And second, Joe McParlin Jr. To the Harwich Housing Committee, from the Harwich Housing Committee, the CPC, with a term to expire June 30th, 2024.
Second.
Moved and second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Assistant Town Administrator's report?
We have 2 contracts that were recently signed. They were both under $75,000, so Joe was able to sign them. One is for Thompson Engineering for electrical engineering for a generator and transfer switch at Saquotucket Harbor. And that's just for the engineering piece of things. That will become a capital item later on that he'll request for. And then the second is a contract with Colonial Municipal Group, which was a vehicle maintenance truck for the DPW that was approved at the 2022 annual town meeting.
Megan, the first contract, how much was that?
The first contract with Thompson Engineering is $8,500.
Okay. We did get a little bit of feedback from a resident today that I will forward to each board member. And I did send it to John Rendon with some questions, and the question really is, how did the property manager, how did they leave out the generator switch when we spent, I think, 11 million or 13 million at the harbor?
And John does have a good answer for that, and
Okay.
I'll let him articulate that.
Okay, great. So, look forward to your inbox. There's one resident did say that the 8,000 was a little much to have missed. Selectmen's report, Larry?
Briefly, we had a busy time in Harwich this weekend, didn't we? We had the playground ribbon cutting, and thank you, Megan. That was great, and I actually had a chance to use that. Not me personally, but my grandkids were here.
That's 2 weeks ago.
You didn't ride the shark?
I should have.
That was 2 weeks ago, but time flies.
And well received. Of course, the fireworks were great. A little long for for me, but for the kids, they loved it.
For your attention span.
For my attention span, just everything went well. People were happy, big crowds, but no, I didn't see any incident. I was around a fair amount. Great, hats off to everyone involved.
Cindy didn't call for the fog this year, so it was perfect. Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to further embarrass her. Cindy seems to be wandering around aimlessly with nothing to do at the moment because of all of these events that have come and gone. Mighty fine parade and mighty fine fireworks, and Cindy does an awful lot for the town through the chamber. We very much appreciate all those efforts.
I agree.
Yeah,
I
good job.
triple agree.
All right, Mary? Julie
no.
doesn't agree.
Nothing to report.
Mary?
Nothing to report.
Julie?
I agree. I went to the Cranberry Festival, listened to some music, saw the fireworks. There were a lot of them, but I enjoyed them, and they're excellent. Thank you to Cindy, thank you to Ed McManus and the whole Cranberry Festival committee. They put in so much time and effort, so another great one in the
And it
books.
shows.
It sure does show.
Motion to adjourn?
But can Christmas be far behind?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. 5-0.
I have some things for you to sign on your way out.
Thank you.
Okay?
Go ahead.
Bag in there.
Special town meeting, what happens if the school funds don't get approved and transfer in? Shouldn't